Let's go Lions! I don't know if you've been following the latest Detroit Lions updates, but I can tell you one thing. Things are heating up, my friends. Brad Holmes is on the radar, and we have some important news to bring you. Before I tell you all the details, make sure you've already hit the like button, but only do so if you've been a Detroit Lions fan for over 20 years. There are people here who have been fans since the 70s. It's great to see you here. If possible, comment like this: "Go Lions, we're going to the Super Bowl this year." Now pay attention. Our general manager Brad Holmes is making strategic moves that are shaping the roster heading into the new season. And if there's one thing we know about this team, it's that special teams is a non-negotiable priority. If you can make plays on special teams, you have a shot at making this roster. That's exactly why they wasted no time in signing linebacker Grant Stewart to replace Jalen Reeves-Maybin. But is this really an upgrade, or are we just running in the same place? Let's break it down. Grant Stewart isn't just any signing. He's a player with a reputation for relentless energy and a nose for the ball. At 5'11" and 230 pounds, he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 7th round, along with Chase Lucas. In the 2024 season, he recorded 25 solo tackles and has remained impressively healthy, missing just 2 games in his entire career. That kind of durability is invaluable, especially in a role where you're going full speed on every play. But is he the kind of player who moves the needle for the Lions? Looking at his scouting report, it's clear that Stewart thrives in a specific role. NFL analysts describe him as a stocky, short-striding linebacker who plays with tremendous energy and is always on offense. He has explosive burst, but struggles with lateral movement, which limits his reach from sideline to sideline. His straight-line speed is solid, but his size and reactive play in space aren't ideal. In other words, he fits the exact mold of what the Lions are looking for on special teams: high energy, all-around aggressiveness, and a willingness to do the dirty work. Strengths: he's relentless in pursuit, slips blocks well, and finishes tackles consistently. Weaknesses: he's undersized, can struggle to shed blockers, and has limited coverage instincts. Sound familiar? That's essentially the same profile as Jalen Reeves-Maybin. This signing reinforces what we already know. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell prioritize grit, toughness, and special teams dominance over everything else.
But here's where things get interesting. While Holmes has been methodical in building the roster, there's a growing pattern that can't be ignored. When it comes to paying players he didn't draft, he hesitates. Think about it. Jamal Williams, who was supposedly a priority, walked away feeling disrespected. Josh Reynolds, also labeled a priority but ended up signing elsewhere. Carlton Davis hinted at a contract issue on social media and was gone shortly after. And now, the Lions opted not to retain Zadarius Smith, even though he was under contract. See the trend? It's clear that Holmes prefers to build from within, drafting his guys and developing them rather than making splashy free agent signings. And while that strategy has merit, it raises a major question. Can the Lions truly build a Super Bowl caliber team strictly through the draft? The Philadelphia Eagles just made a massive move by signing Saquon Barkley, a power move designed to put them over the top. Meanwhile, the Lions are still waiting to address one of their biggest weaknesses, the pass rush. And let's be honest, that's the elephant in the room. No matter how good the culture fit, no matter how strong the special teams, this team isn't winning a Super Bowl without a dominant pass rush. The Lions' defense struggled when it mattered most last season, and they couldn't touch Jaden Daniels when they needed to. Yet, so far, Holmes has refused to make a major splash at the defensive line position outside of signing DJ Reader to a reasonable deal. So what happens next? Does this team finally go all in and add an impact pass rusher in free agency? Or do they roll the dice in the draft, hoping they hit on another Aidan Hutchinson type talent? If they don't address this issue, it could be the Achilles heel that prevents them from taking the next step. Now, here's where I need to hear from you. What do you think of the Grant Stewart signing? Is he an upgrade over Jalen Reeves-Maybin, or just a lateral move? And more importantly, do you trust Brad Holmes' method of building through the draft? Or do you think it's time for him to make a bold move in free agency? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And let's not pretend this isn't a defining offseason for Brad Holmes. The Lions have reached the point where building for the future isn't enough. This team is in win-now mode. They were 15-2 last season, winning games even when injuries piled up, proving that the foundation is solid. But when the lights were brightest, when it mattered most, they couldn't touch Jaden Daniels. That's not just an observation, that's a glaring weakness, and it's one Holmes has yet to truly fix. Let's be real, the Lions' defense was exposed late in the season, particularly in big games. When pressure didn't get home, opposing quarterbacks had time to pick apart the secondary. Yes, the front office has addressed the secondary in free agency before, paying guys like Cam Sutton and now DJ Reader, but the defensive line itself, outside of Hutchinson, it hasn't been built into the dominant force it needs to be. The Lions cannot afford to rely on one superstar pass rusher. If this team is serious about contending, they need to pair Hutchinson with another elite threat. And that's exactly why this offseason feels like a make-or-break moment. So why isn't Holmes making that move? Why is he so hesitant to go after a proven defensive lineman in free agency? Is it a cap issue? A philosophy thing? Or is it stubbornness? Some fans would argue he's sticking to his principles, building through the draft, finding guys who fit the culture, and not overpaying in free agency. And look, there's a lot of merit to that. Holmes has been one of the best drafters in the league since arriving in Detroit. But at some point, drafting well isn't enough. You have to take that leap. You have to take that risk. Just look at what the Eagles did. They saw a chance to get better, to add an elite weapon in Saquon Barkley, and they made it happen. That's the difference between a team that wants to win and a team that's content with progress. The Lions can't afford to be the latter. They need to stop playing it safe. And don't even get me started on the draft. If Holmes uses a first-round pick on a cornerback instead of a pass rusher, I might just lose my mind. This team doesn't need another project. It doesn't need another future piece. It needs someone who can get to the quarterback right now. A true difference maker who can take this defense to the next level. Because if the Lions are serious about winning a Super Bowl, the path forward is crystal clear. Fix the pass rush or get left behind. The scariest part? We've seen this pattern before. Holmes has had opportunities to make bold moves in free agency, and time again, he's passed. Even when a player was labeled a priority, they ended up leaving. And what happens next? The longer these negotiations drag on, the more likely it is that we see another key player walk away. At what point do we start asking the tough questions? At what point does this shift from a smart, calculated strategy to flat-out reluctance? One thing is for sure, this offseason will tell us everything we need to know. If Holmes finally steps up and makes the aggressive move, we'll know he's ready to take this team over the top. But if he plays it safe again, if he sticks to his usual approach and ignores the glaring need on the defensive line, we might have to start questioning whether this team is truly built to win a championship. So let's hear it. Do you still trust Brad Holmes' approach? Do you think he's playing it smart? Or is it time for him to be more aggressive? And most importantly, how do you feel about this team's chances if they don't make a major move for a pass rusher? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And here's the real question that every Lions fan should be asking right now. How much longer can this team afford to wait? Because let's be honest, windows in the NFL don't stay open forever. The Lions have built something special, but this roster isn't going to stay intact for the next 5 years. Contracts will expire. Players will get injured. Other teams will get better. The NFC is wide open right now, but how long will that last? Now, I want to hear from you. Are you still on board with Brad Holmes' approach? Or do you think it's time for him to get aggressive? Are you happy with the moves the Lions have made so far? Or do you feel like they're playing it too safe? And most importantly, if they don't fix the pass rush, do you think this team can actually win a Super Bowl? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And as always, go Lions!